It is NFL Week 2. There's fantasy football news and notes, injuries flooding in right now. We're going to get to all those start sits, answer your questions, your betting questions, your fantasy questions, an early Browns Steelers preview. There's a lot. Let's go. Sick podcast with Andy McNamara.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara. The sickest Cleveland Browns podcast.
Cut back by Chubb. He's to the 10. He's still running to the 5. He dips outside left. He's going in. Touchdown. What a run. Nick Chubb.
It's going to be sick.
It's Sunday, and you know what that means. Fantasy football time, NFL season, betting, Browns talk. All you need right now. Shoaib Alli is going to be jumping on with me in just a few minutes' time. There is, like I said, a ton of injury news coming in that's going to affect your fantasy football lineup. So stay tuned for that. Before, though, hey, us Browns fans, we get to relax today. It's going to be a great weather day because the Browns don't play until Monday night under the bright lights with the all-white helmets, the new white helmets, on Monday Night Football under primetime against the Steelers. And you've seen all the stats. You've seen all Pittsburgh hasn't lost at home on Monday Night Football 20 times in a row, 20-0. I'll give you. That's a little daunting. But this team doesn't care about that. That Browns defense can eat Kenny Pickett for dinner. But Mike Tomlin always gets his team up. They always find a way to get in the Browns' heads. Is that going to be the same? Is it the same old Browns? Or are they going to step up like they did last week against the Bengals and make a statement and go 2-0? I'm going to Cleveland next week for week 3 against the Titans. If that team is 2-0, we're going to be riding into town. That city is going to be insane. And I hope it is. I can't wait. But Monday Night Football, some big injury news there for your fantasy lineup for just in general. For the Browns, Amari Cooper went on the injury list with an ankle issue. Now, he is questionable whether he'll play or not. We'll get to the fantasy impact of what that would mean a little bit later on if he doesn't go. I still feel confident, though, that while obviously you want Amari Cooper and he is your top wide receiver, the Browns are in a unique situation because you still have the best running back in football in Nick Chubb. And I think, at least for a game, if you don't want to risk the Amari Cooper issue, use Elijah Moore more often. You saw how he moved, he cut, he waggled. He was just so slippery in limited touches on that slippery field. Weather's supposed to be good Monday night. I say you work Elijah Moore more often. Donovan Peoples-Jones has to get the ball more. You still have Njoku. You can work in the rookie Cedric Tillman that built some chemistry with Deshaun Watson and Marquise Goodwin. And I'm sure they were practicing it all week. If you get that timing down, that deep ball, Goodwin had those Bengals secondary beat. Speed-wise, had him beat both times and Watson missed him. You just got to hit one and you're putting up 7. Okay? So it's there. Now for the Steelers, big injury news. Cam Hayward out, surgery. TJ Watt's still in. That's not great. But on the receiver side, Deontay Johnson out. And now George Pickens showing up on the injury report. He's going to be questionable. That Steelers offense couldn't score before anyway. So really, you cut down 1 to 1.5, maybe 2 if Pickens doesn't go or he's not 100%. Then what are you leaning on if you're the Steelers? Najee Harris? That's a David Montgomery 2.0, right? He's going to give you under 4 yards a carry. If you stuff him up, you make Kenny Pickett throw the ball. Browns are in a great situation, but we've seen in the past, and I think this is a different Browns mindset. I think this is a totally different Browns team mentally from the past with Jim Schwartz and Bubba Ventrone in as coordinators now. I don't think they care about those past ghosts. You have to start hot and then put down Pickett. Get to him, rattle him, fluster him. You get a 3-and-out. Shut that yellow rag-waving Steelers crowd up on Monday Night Football. You're going to do it. And make no mistake, Browns fans, that national media wants you to fail. They want you to fail. They want you to go in and Pittsburgh, who's down and got dominated by the 49ers, they want us to look stupid. And I don't think that's going to happen this week. And the Browns can make a statement. We're going to track those injury reports for that Browns game for Monday Night Football. But there's a lot to get to before Monday Night Football, and that is today's slates of games. Fantasy football questions. Get them in right now. You can go right to the channel, leave the live comments, What questions do you have for your fantasy team? What betting questions do you have? Also on Twitter, at AndyMC81, at SickPodBrowns. Use hashtag AskAndy. It's on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok too, at AndyMC Sports. You can also get one of these nice professional fantasy football player shirts in the team shop, the show shop, right in the link of here and on Twitter. I have it pinned at AndyMC81. So, hey, get your gear. Look good. Speaking of looking good, how about I bring in my guy from Sportsnet, Shoaib Alli. Show, how you doing, buddy?
Good, Andy. I heard you talking about Bubba Ventrone. I didn't realize he was with the Browns now. It's New England Patriots legend, Bubba Ventrone.
That's right. You know what? It's so funny because he carved out his world, his playing world on special teams. He spent a good chunk of time with the Browns and the Patriots.
Yeah, I want to say he was either the special teams coordinator or the assistant special teams coordinator in the big Patriots comeback win over the Falcons. So it's kind of funny to think that, hey, now he's helping them do it for the Browns in Cleveland.
Wait, so he was on that team there. With the Falcons comeback.
I think he was a player for the Patriots in like 05 to 07 or 06 to 08. There were a couple of years there, and then I think he started his coaching career, by essentially winning a Super Bowl in one of the craziest comebacks, and then he started to continue, I guess, growing his coaching legacy, his coaching tree, whatever you want to call it.
So I remember that game, and for those in the sports broadcasting industry, if you have a show to prep for, or you're making your notes or updates when that was a thing, whatever, you try to prep ahead. You try to read the scene a little bit, right? It's like, okay, we saw that Super Bowl. I'm sure you were the same way. It's like, all right, I can write this script up, boom, be out of here early. Have everything written up. And I was like, oh, well, crumple that. This has gone in a different direction. This is the greatest collapse in Super Bowl history.
I was in the newsroom just down the hall from where I am right now, and there was no one here. Everyone was either at a party or they were like watching it at home. And I was one of like 3 people here, and all 3 of us went quite nuts, let me assure you.
That's amazing. Hey, like I said, jump in the comment section here. Hit us up on Twitter. We got our buddy Thunderwolf show. Thunderwolf in the house. Oh, from the old fantasy show days. T-Wolf in the house. He says hello. Yes. We got Grant here. He says Tillman time for Cedric Tillman with Amari Cooper possibly out. We have Leanne as well. Leanne from Woodbine. Leanne, how everything is going great for you guys. Yeah, get those questions in. I see them from Grant as well. So yeah, we'll get to those questions a little bit later on. But there is a ton of injury news that is going to affect these fantasy lineups. Okay, so we're going to be looking through, and if we see anything that pops up, we'll keep you up to date. One big thing is we're going to have A.J. Jones and Christian Watson out for the Packers. That means if you got A.J. Dillon, that's all his backfield. This could be a huge day for Dillon versus the Falcons.
I don't mind the A.J. Dillon play because we saw Aaron Jones was used. And, I mean, it's not always going to be like a one-for-one. You take a guy out, the other guy has the exact same role. But A.J. Dillon has shown when he is taking over the backfield that he is quite capable, even if he is not quite as shifty, perhaps, as Aaron Jones. But, hey, I mean, it's definitely a great play if you're in need at running back. And it does kind of make me wonder about the kind of, I think a lot of people would be fine playing Romeo Doubs, for example, but it does kind of make me wonder with no Christian Watson, again, what people's feelings might be like on either Jaden Reed or perhaps Luke Musgrave. We actually got a Luke Musgrave question last week.
Yes.
And he was one big play away from scoring a pretty high outing for tight ends, right? I mean, tight end wasteland is what it is. And at least some of the top tight ends are actually going to play this week, like Kelsey and Andrews. But beyond those guys, I mean, given how dire it looks even at the best of times, with no Christian Watson and Aaron Jones, Luke Musgrave might not be a bad, back-end tight end play if you're really in need.
No, you're right. You're right. And yeah, you mentioned the tight ends. That's huge. So Andrew's going to play. And Kelsey, he'll wear a sleeve on the knee, but will play. As long as Kelsey has a knee physically attached to his body, he's better still than most tight ends. Like 50% Kelsey is a better option. I would rather ride and suffer the consequences with that than going with just about anybody else, maybe not named TJ Hawkinson, who already played on Thursday.
Well, apparently today is Patrick Mahomes' 28th birthday. So
Oh.
happy birthday, Patrick Mahomes. You get to play with Travis Kelce in week 2.
You get to play with Travis Kelce and remind yourself that you have $500 million in the bank.
Yes.
So, throw the football, kids. Throw the football. See.
I'm so man, Andy. The life I want in my next life is still either backup quarterback or like middle inning reliever, where I only have to face like 2 batters at a time. That's what you want to be. Those are the career options you want.
Yeah, with the agent of Kirk Cousins, who just did you see the pile? Like he's made. The numbers off the top of my head, but he's made like $300 million just by like doing those one-off years, the franchise tags and guaranteed money. Like, what a genius for putting up phenomenal fantasy numbers Thursday, but still can't win. Doesn't matter for our purposes. Still can't win the big game. But man, the guy just puts up numbers and cashes checks. What a legend.
Yeah, hey, I mean, if you're Kirk Cousins, he will be fantasy-wise also. He'll be like a top 5 to 7 quarterback basically every week, has the upside for a little bit more. I mean, the guy put up almost 30 points on Thursday night, and they still lost. I mean, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot this year, so I kind of wonder if you might not see that a little bit more often this season.
Yep, and Jordan Addison, the rookie, I have him on my bench in a couple leagues, and I wanted to kind of feel it out. 2 games, couple touchdowns. I think he might be the real deal. I
actually did start him on Thursday in one of my leagues. I was very pleased when he caught that long breakaway touchdown. It was very nice to see.
Yeah, like 16-ish fantasy. Like, it's pretty good. DeAndre Hopkins is expected to play, has an ankle injury, but did not practice all week for the Titans. And we talked about it before the season started. And Hopkins, to me, now is the new Julio Jones. Every week, that dude's going to be showing up with a Q, and you're going to have to question whether you should start him or not. Every week.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we talked about this last week. It's not that I don't believe that Hopkins isn't still very talented. It's just at this stage of his career, you're going to get injured more. And I think it's really unfortunate. He was healthy all game, and I think he suffered the injury on the last play. Like when he went up and landed awkwardly on the foot or the ankle, and he twisted it. So, boy, that is so tough because for a guy who injury concerns were going to follow, it looked like he was going to survive week 1 at the very least, and on the last play of the game he gets injured. That's really tough. And it does make me kind of feel like in Tennessee, I don't know how many guys I really feel that comfortable starting whose names are not Derrick Henry, essentially.
No, you're absolutely right. The offense is pretty flat. And we'll get a little bit more into that game later. More injury news. CJ Stroud will play today. Popped up on the injury report Friday, right shoulder injury, but is expected to play. I'm not sure, how much of a impact that makes to people's fantasy weeks or how many were starting CJ Stroud, especially in this game, which, boy, if there's a missable game this week, it's Colts Texans. Well,
is that because you expect the Colts to beat up on the Texans, so it doesn't matter? Because I will say, from the Texans side of things, I don't know who you're starting from a fantasy perspective. Maybe Dalton Schultz, maybe Dameon Pierce, I guess, but that's probably it. Like from the Colts, you could probably start a whole whack of guys, but yeah, I mean, from an excitement standpoint, probably very little. I actually did see from an injury standpoint, Laramie Tunsil, I think, was not expected to play, so that could be like the 4th offensive lineman for the Texans, who's injured or is not playing. So that's not great for your mobile rookie quarterback, is it?
No, and even the line, Houston's a -1 favorite, a 1-point favorite. That is just Vegas. Not even that's like the line makers show, just not caring. Like I don't know. I just come on. There's bet on other games. Bet on other games. Anthony, I'll say this though. Anthony Richardson for the unknown with the arm talent and how that would translate to the NFL. And I stayed away from all Colts this year. I have Anthony Richardson as a backup QB in one league, but I was pleasantly surprised his connection with Pittman. And if you can continue that, Michael Pittman can still be fantasy relevant.
I think the thing that was the most encouraging, I definitely agree with you on the Pittman thing. The thing for me that was the most encouraging with Anthony Richardson is that for someone who was said to be the most raw of any of the quarterback prospects taken, and he had that word raw and unfinished attached to his name basically the entire draft process. And you know what? I mean, yeah, he's still a little raw, but They made it sound like he was still learning to throw a football, and he actually looked, generally speaking, I would say pretty good. Like I was actually more impressed with him than I was with any of the other rookies in week one, whether it's quarterbacks or running backs or wideouts, just because like everyone made it sound like he was going to be a disaster, and then he comes in and he actually played pretty well. So I especially in your super flex league, perhaps I wouldn't mind starting or trotting out Anthony Richardson until you can't, essentially.
Yeah, and he's and the legs, right? The guy's a physical freak. In the chat here, and you can jump into the comment section. We got Thunderwolf and Grant saying, yeah, agreeing about the tight end Luke Musgrave in Green Bay. And also for Pittman, Thunderwolf says Michael Pittman is a must start this week, in my opinion, and he's taken Indy all the way. I think that's, especially with the offensive line situation there, Show. I think that should be. I don't think you're going to be getting great payout on it, but that seems to be the play. Hey, for you Survivor Pool guys, if you haven't made your pick yet, it's always a little dicey, but this might be the week you go Colts, because I don't know how often you want to really pick a team like the Colts.
That's not a bad idea. I actually also I think I'm in three survivor pools, I should say. I might lock in the Colts before kickoff. And also, you know what? I wonder what kind of odds you can still get, Andy, on Anthony Richardson, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Like, it'll be a bit of a tough ride if Bijan Robinson continues to play like very, very, very well, which is, for running backs, maybe it's a little harder perhaps to perform well versus a quarterback, just because quarterbacks are always going to get the lion's share of media attention and just attention in general. But I mean, if you're looking it up, I wonder, wherever you make your bets, whatever shop you're looking at, you probably can get some nice plus odds, probably on both Bijan and Richardson at this point of the season. It's still pretty early.
Okay, I got it up here. So the top two favorites: Bijan Robinson plus 260, Anthony Richardson second at plus 450. After that, Jahmyr Gibbs at plus 900, which I'm not pleased with that usage show from. I have a couple of shares in Gibbs, and I was not happy with David Montgomery.
Good. It's just he wasn't used a lot.
It's like, Dan Campbell, guy, come on, what are we doing here? Jeez. Yeah, Bijan and Richardson at plus 450. Sure, that's not a bad idea for Offensive Rookie of the Year. That's not a bad. I
think I had gotten it at plus 600 last week after the game. So I'm not surprised to see it go down just a smidge, but still 450 is not bad, honestly.
No,
for a quarterback.
For a quarterback, and he's got the big body, and he can be exciting for it. Let's see. Just want to see if there's any other major injury. Brandon Cooks is not expected to play today for the Cowboys versus the Jets, which means, I picked up in one of the leagues Michael Gallup to replace him for this week, because Gallup will now go to that number 2 spot behind CD Lamb. And we've seen in the past, when Gallup hits that WR2 spot, he can produce. Like, he can give you some nice mid-teen numbers. So if you're looking for a wide receiver that's going to be widely available to fill in for some interviews, maybe as a flex, WR3, whatever on your team, I think Michael Gallup's a really nice play that you can slot in for this week.
Are you concerned at all about the play of Dak Prescott, or do you think that was like a one-off because the Giants just absolutely pummeled the Cowboys, or the opposite, apparently, the Cowboys pummeling the Giants, and they just didn't have to do all that much.
Yeah, I think it's the last thing you said there. It was a weird game. Like, if you didn't watch the game and you saw 40-0, you'd be like, wow, Dak Prescott probably threw for three touchdowns or so. And you look, you're like, no passing touchdowns. The defense had 2 touchdowns. I'll tell you, I won 2 of the 4 leagues I'm in for that week because of the Cowboys defense. I got like 37 points. That's so good. I was like, yes. Defenses count, people.
The opposite happened for me. I started Diggs and the Cowboys defense in one league, and I lost by 1 point.
No!
I couldn't believe it.
Oh, no. But no,
you know what, funnily enough, that was the league in which I started Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, who, thanks to your Browns, combined for, I think, the 2 guys combined for a whopping 3 points. It was wild.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like 82 passing yards for Joe. I could list you the stats of that game forever, I'm going to remember that one for a while. But yeah, you're right. And there's some questions this week. Do I start them again? Like Joe Burrow, for playing a full game, I would find it very difficult to believe he'll ever throw for under 100 yards again. Like, that was like It happened. It's done. T. Higgins, it's against the Ravens, though. They're banged up. We'll get to that game a little bit. But to your Dak Prescott question, I think it's really about that he didn't have to. The defense was doing all the work for him. They could take it easy. So hopefully, if you're a Cowboy owner, this is a bounce back week offensively for them. For the Jets, you're Aaron Rodgers. He's like, I plan on being back for the playoffs. It's like you have Zach Wilson. You have Zach Wilson at quarterback. You're not sniffing the playoffs, buddy. Sorry. You might be physically able to come playoff time, but you won't be in the playoffs. No.
I will say if the Jets manage to make the playoffs with Zach Wilson as their quarterback for most of the year, that has got to be one of the more impressive feats we'll have seen in quite some time.
Yes. Well, they signed their backup. And of course, if there's ever a backup vacancy, if there's Tom Brady coming out of retirement, no. Colin Kaepernick, stop it. Colin Kaepernick's like 40. It's done, people. There's no Kaepernick. It's over. It's over. They got Tim Boyle. Tim, your life goal in your next life of being a backup quarterback can be like a Tim Boyle. You'll have a job somewhere. There'll be zero expectations for you,
sure,
and you'll make $1 million. It's great life.
Who could complain about that? Like, I do genuinely wonder if, like, let's say Phillip Rivers got a phone call. Do you think Phillip Rivers is like, yeah, you know what? I'll go play in New York. I'll go stand behind that offensive line. Like, I mean, which is admittedly not great, but I don't know. I wonder how appetizing it is for the Jets brass to go through the rest of the season with Zach Wilson. I'm sure they're going to give him a chance, but if he stinks it up, then do you go and try and get like Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston from being a backup somewhere else in the NFL? Like, probably.
Yeah. Like, you need a competent guy. Like, I think the Dallas defense could feast again this week. Oh my gosh. I think it's just
so afraid of starting Garrett Wilson, Andy. I legitimately am afraid of doing it.
I'm with you. But it's a situation where you probably can't not start him. Yeah. Right? Like, your only hope is if the defense just kills them early and you get garbage points, I guess. Right?
Yes. It's tough. There are a number of situations where I'm thinking, like, do I start Jahan Dotson or Kendrick Bourne, or do you just bench Wilson for a running back in your flex spot? Like, people who are asking those questions, I think they're completely valid because Garrett Wilson, he caught a touchdown in the opener, which was really him preventing Zach Wilson from throwing an interception and then tipping the ball back to himself. Like, it was a phenomenal catch, but I mean, if he hadn't done that, that's probably a pick in the end zone.
100%. In the chat here, and jump in, give us a follow. Shows on Twitter at SNS Ali, at AndyMC81, at SickPodBrowns. Click share the link here, notification bell, all that good stuff. We have Leanna in the chat saying, change my survivor pick to Indy, guys. Hashtag for the shoe. Hashtag Ursay is nuts. Correct. Yes. You know what? I'm thinking too, because my survivor pick was Dallas, because I thought, you want to get through those first weeks, but man, Dallas is going to be good. I might change it to the Colts too. I'm going to have to think on that one. I think I might do that. We got from Grant. Hey, he brings up a good point. And this is the beauty of the NFL Week 1 in fantasy football. Sure. Who saw Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell coming at you? My gosh. Holy for the Rams.
Apparently Puka is dealing with like an oblique injury or some kind of injury, and he will play or he won't play. The insiders are not saying or whatever. I don't know. It's a wild situation, but he was probably one of the hottest waiver wire pickups ever, given that he saw just a ridiculous volume from Matthew Stafford. It probably will change when Cooper Kupp comes back off the IR, but I mean, until then, it's not a bad play, even if he is a little banged up. I mean, if he starts, don't you have to start him, essentially, based on what happened in week 1?
Here's my only hang up on that. Beyond the injury, you're playing the 49ers defense.
That's
and
true.
Matthew Stafford, as we've talked about, he's statuesque. He's not going to be able to avoid any pressure at all when the 49ers attack and swarm. So my only worry is that I think, like, if we look ahead the next couple weeks after, I like it, but is there going to be able to be that type of volume or get that for Puka, who's injured with that oblique? I picked up Tutu, and I just love that we're saying these names. If there's no context and someone tunes in, it's like, Puka and Tutu, what the heck are these? We're talking about Saturday morning cartoons. It's great. It's like, But for Tutu, he got a line share too. He went for 119 yards and had 6 catches. So maybe he might be that little bit of an off play because he didn't get the touchdowns in it, but that guy popped too. Like it's interesting. I might put Tutu in as kind of a flex. That 49ers defense though, that makes me real nervous.
Yeah, the 49ers, I'm not sure we learned anything about the power structure, let's call it, of the NFC in the first week of the season, because all the teams you expected to be good, largely were very good, and the 49ers were one of those teams, and they just absolutely punked the Steelers. So if that was the case, then, I mean, you think they're, for a team that is probably more talented than the Steelers in the Rams, albeit certainly a lot older, I mean, maybe it'll be a little bit more difficult to do, and maybe the offensive play calling from Sean McVay is a little bit more innovative, perhaps, than old Canada in Pittsburgh. But if that's the case, then while I still would start both Puka and Tutu Atwell, it's probably like WR3 flex territory and nothing beyond that. Because I think beyond that is you're really hoping for a bigger day that probably might not come given the strength of the 49ers D, right?
Well, and it's that other combo of, okay, the 49ers D and these guys came out of seemingly nowhere.
Yes, yeah.
So is this like a one-off? Is it, where are we going with it? We got Tone in the chat here as well. Michael Thomas or Mostert in the flex day, so we'll get to that in a couple minutes. T-Wolf saying that the Jets D is legit. Salah was huge for the Niners. That's right. So, I think the Jets are going to be a tough out. I don't think they're going to be a cakewalk, but it's just going to be, if a team scores 24 points, you're probably not catching them. That's kind of where it's at, I think. So
I wonder how much they lean on the run game. I mean, the Dallas defense is so tough, right? But I do wonder how much they lean on Breece Hall, who frankly looked pretty good, looked pretty confident on that knee in week 1. For someone who was like, I'm not sure how I feel. Hey, it looks like he feels pretty good.
Yeah, looks like it feels pretty good. Melvin Gordon brought up from the Ravens practice squad, or they activated him with the J.K. Dobbins injury. So just as a heads up there. You know what? We got some questions, and let's get to some questions here. Then we'll keep rolling through the games and ask Andy. Let's do it. Okay. Let's answer that first question with Tone. Let me find that here. There we go. Michael Thomas or Mostert in the flex today. Boy, I don't Michael Thomas seems to me still such a wild card because he hasn't played, but you're playing Carolina. He did have, I'm just looking here, 5 catches for 61 yards last week. And then you have Mostert, which we keep talking about, he's in that committee, right? And you're against New England, which he's against your Patriots, which is always a tough out. He did have a touchdown last week, but he could very easily not have a touchdown this week, which would have really sunk his fantasy value.
That's a tough one. They're both in the same kind of flex category area for me. I would probably go with Michael Thomas just because I feel like the New England defense is probably tougher than who the Saints are facing today. That's probably the only what would make the difference for me, because last week and the Eagles play calling probably also did not help, but I mean, no running back really got going against the Patriots last week. Really, it's for a point where you would feel like it changed your fantasy outcome. And I want to say Shane is back. Is that right? I think he is returning for the Dolphins. So if he is returning, maybe you might see him worked in a little bit more because he didn't play last week. So if that's the case, maybe I go Michael Thomas, because not as the Michael Thomas of 4 years ago, but perhaps as a nice flex play, maybe more so in half or full PPR, maybe make it more of a difference. Yeah,
because like you said, you're working a Shane as well. Then that's another body. And you're going to be throwing to Tyreek. So there's a lot going on. We got more questions coming in here. Click like, guys. Give us the thumbs up. Click subscribe, notification, all that good stuff. You can get your questions in on Twitter as well using hashtag AskAndy, at AndyMC81, at SNSLE, at SickPodBrowns. Have one from Z Smitty. Do I start Christian Kirk, Jamal Williams, or Zay Flowers at my flex? Leaning Williams because I think he gets in the end zone. And on a couple of my teams, I actually have both Christian Kirk, who did nothing last week. I was very upset about that show. Nothing.
Yeah, he oddly looks like he is now the third guy in that, or the fourth guy in that offense. It kind of looks like both Zay Jones and Evan Ingram and Calvin Ridley are all ahead of him at this point.
Yeah, like Ridley is the top dog for sure, like we talked about. But yeah, where does Kirk? I'm going to start him in a flex one more week. Because he was the number 2. He does have that comfort level. If he's a dog this week, I gotta bench him. That's really tough. Now, Jamal Williams also didn't do much last week, but the opportunity remains there. He should be doing more with the Saints with Alvin Kamara. I think, that Zay Flowers, now did he say if it was PPR or not, Z Smitty? If it's PPR, I think you go Zay Flowers based on touches. Mark Andrews not 100%. And Zay Flowers got a lot of looks because it's in that nice little wheelhouse where Lamar Jackson just pop him just real quick and let him do the rest. I might go Zay against Cincy.
I will go Jamal Williams only because I want to see. I'm always a little bit more conservative on some of this stuff, but I would like to see what Zay Flowers' usage is with Mark Andrews. Just because there was no Mark Andrews, Isaiah likely did nothing. He had absolutely nothing. So the only receiver who was really productive, I think, at all for the Ravens offense was Zay Flowers. He looked great. I think he is the real deal. He might be a little bit smaller. This is true. But generally speaking, Zay Flowers, I think, is a legitimate NFL wide receiver who will be making plays for a lot of years. Kind of maybe a little bit more in the Devonta Smith kind of that end of things versus the big-bodied wide receivers. High pointing the ball, for example. But I love Zay Flowers, but I want to see what it looks like with Mark Andrews also on the field, because we know Lamar Jackson loves to throw the ball to Mark Andrews, and then his second read is also Mark Andrews, and then maybe he'll run on third down, right? So I just want to see.
And OBJ, he's going to demand the ball too.
This is true. He's gonna need it. Otherwise, he's gonna want to get out of town. No, I do want to see what it looks like. So I think for the purposes of this, I might go Jamal Williams.
And Z Smitty popped back and he said, the only issue is I have Mark Andrews. So if that's the case, don't cannibalize yourself. I'll go with Jamal Williams on that, with that scenario as well. Okay. So we'll go with Jamal Williams there. Let's pull up some tweets here and see what a couple of the hashtag Ask Andy tweets are. There's our guys. So Thunderwolf at Twolf 1979, half PPR. Who do you start at the flex? DJ Moore or Mike Evans? How about my boy Baker, huh? Bake. He's back. That rookie card.
Okay. He didn't look bad.
Skyrocketing in value, My autographed Baker rookie card. Skyrocketing. Who wants it?
Maybe Baker should go play for the Jets. Maybe he'll play good enough to audition for the New York job. Who knows?
In New York. Like, you know what? The crazy thing is, like, Baker, I don't know. He's not fantasy relevant. He's kind of a wild card. But that division is not good. Like, if they get on a bit of a roll, like, you still have, like, Mike Evans isn't the Mike Evans of years past, but the dude put up 18 fantasy points and caught 6 balls on 10 targets. You still got Godwin, White in the backfield. Like, you're not a bad team if you can get some sort of consistency there. So we look at, it was Mike Evans. I think I would go Evans in this case. I think I would go Evans there.
Yeah, I think I probably would too, until I see the usage change for DJ Moore. Like, I think one of the most disappointing, I don't know about you, but one of the most disappointing developments for me of week 1, and again, super early, this could very easily change as soon as today, but was seeing Justin Fields like not make reads, not go through his progressions, just like be a little bit careless with the football, but just kind of immediately tuck it and run, or just stare down one guy. And I mean, all the conversation was about like, oh, look at what happened to Deshaun when he got Amari Cooper, or look what happened to Tua when he got Tyreek, or look what happened to all these different players when they get a legitimate wide receiver. Well, now Justin Fields has DJ Moore, and then it just didn't look all that great, right? So no. I want to see again what it looks like before I feel all that comfortable. I mean, some people might have no choice but to start DJ Moore because he was probably drafted like relatively highly. But boy, I would probably in this specific instance for Thunderwolf go Evans over Moore until we see a change. Yeah, and the thing is, you're right, Joe. Justin Fields did, like, everyone was ready to crown Justin Fields. There were leagues like Justin Fields was ranked in a lot of fantasy rankings ahead of Justin Herbert to be drafted. Yeah, crazy. Like, this Bears team it's better, but it's not good. Like, the weapons are still not that exciting. They're still like DJ Moore isn't, a Hall of Fame receiver. He's fine. Like, this is not a great Bears team. So
yeah, I think it was really overhyped there. So we'll go with Evans on that. Let's pull up another tweet here. Use hashtag Ask Andy. Let's see what we got here. From at Palace Scout, have Shane, Dubs, and Bateman stashed on my bench, or do I drop any to bring in Rashawn, Gallup, Calvin Austin, or Hill PPR redraft? And out of those options, Show, I'm playing Dubs because of the injuries to Watson and Jones. A Shane in there, like, again, I would try to keep him on the bench, but I wouldn't drop him. Bateman, to me, is the odd man out. I would say for this week specifically, this is where, like I was saying earlier, you pop in Gallup with Cooks not going to be playing. You have him as the 2. I think that gives you your better option, your highest floor in a fill-in situation.
Well, so he was saying he stashed those guys, right? So certainly if you're stashing Dubs, you can definitely put him to your bench to your starting lineup. But I do kind of wonder if it might not be worth dropping Rashad Bateman just to pick up one of Gallup if the Cooks thing is a bit of a longer injury, or even Justice Hill, only because we have really no idea what the splits or the practice work looks like for Gus Edwards or Justice Hill. And like you said, they elevated Melvin Gordon, but knowing that J.K. Dobbins is done for the season, I mean, the starting job will probably not go to any one guy, and obviously Lamar himself will cannibalize some of those touches. But I mean, I kind of wonder if it's just for the purposes of discussing stash end of bench player in case they blow up later in the season. Of the guys he mentioned, I mean, Roshan looked pretty good as well, but I'm not sure that's the sexiest situation either, as we just talked about the Bears. So I think if you're okay with churning the end of your roster, I might not mind picking up Hill, for example.
Yeah, I'm with you. On Instagram, at AndyMC Sports, at Fog_SL says, would you start Chris Godwin or Garrett Wilson? I'm thinking I need to go Godwin. I'm thinking you're right, Fog_SL, because of what we talked about earlier. Like, Godwin put up some numbers. We saw the target share with Mike Evans. So really the thinking between the two hasn't changed over the years. It's they're both going to get theirs and they might eat into each other. But man, if I have a choice between the two, do I want to be relying on Zach Wilson getting Garrett Wilson the ball with that Dallas defense? If I have a choice, I think I got to stay away from that.
So what were the choices again?
Godwin or Garrett Wilson.
It's just who to start. Yeah.
Just who to start. He's got both. Yeah.
That's so tough. I just, I guess you probably want to go away. Maybe in this particular week matchup,
right,
with the Cowboys. Like, it's not as though you can never start Garrett Wilson again, right?
No, not at all.
I think most weeks you probably will start Garrett Wilson unless your options are like Tyreek Hill and Diggs and Amon-Ra St. Brown and those guys, right?
Yeah.
Unless you have a top option. I mean, Godwin is a decent option, even if Baker's passing output is not quite the same as like that of Josh Allen or someone else, but it's also probably a better passing output than Zach Wilson. So yeah, maybe this week it is Godwin, but boy, I have a hard time benching Wilson. Like I am starting Wilson in every league I have him in, just because I feel like I have no other option.
That's it. What and that's always the question, right? When you're debating starting or sitting somebody, who are you putting in their place?
You're right.
Like if you're going from Wilson to Christian Kirk, who got 1.9 fantasy points last week, I'd rather chance it with Wilson. If you have different options, then you like a Godwin, then you can make those choices. Rick in the chat here, and you can jump in the chat here on the live stream. In your comment to Justin Fields says, I agree, Show. He didn't exhibit the improvement in the pass game. And Grant with a question. Here's interesting. Are you giving Baker a big edge over Zach Wilson? I don't know if I want to say big edge, but I think an edge, right? Look, I think Baker he showed it last week. And look, the last time Baker was sort of fully healthy I don't know if I'd call Tampa Bay stable, but more stable than it was in Carolina. And then he had that big comeback game in the Rams. But the last time he was fully healthy and in a situation where he was definitely the guy was 2020 with the Browns, and a healthy Baker was a very good distributor of the football. They made the playoffs. They beat Pittsburgh twice in a row, including the playoffs. So if I'm looking at it for a guy who is in it and feeds off of momentum, I think I got to go with Baker.
Boy, yeah. I feel like we have gotten just a better sample size from Baker as a starter, and even going back to last year, Zach Wilson had the entire season most of the entire season until he got benched essentially, and he just did not look good. Now again, maybe the offseason will do him some good, but I mean the early returns on Monday night after Rodgers went down also did not look super inspiring. Like, I'm not sure if there was any one play where I was like, oh boy, you know what? There's something there from 2023 Zach Wilson, right? Whereas I feel like I did say that a couple times, maybe not a lot, but a couple times in the Vikings-Bucks game in Week 1, right? Because Baker he underthrew Mike Evans on the touchdown. It feels like he probably could have let him a little bit more, but I don't know. Like, it does feel like Baker was capable of delivering the ball a little bit more on time than Zach Wilson was, but I don't know. You're right. Okay, to answer the guy's question, I don't think it's a huge edge, but like this is a very little edge.
And look, Garrett Wilson and Grant saying Wilson's still the WR1. Definitely. Like, he's still the guy in New York. I think we just have to downgrade what we expect out of him fantasy wise. Like, if you get Garrett Wilson the ball in his direct, he's going to make plays, but how much more do you lean on the run and et cetera with that? So that's always a little bit tricky. Let's get to a few of the games here today that jump out to us. Bills Raiders is interesting. Buffalo at -8. And I was getting questions all week. Josh Allen panic. Stephon Diggs panic. What do I do? Look, Josh Allen, he just has the look in his eyes. He's just a simple, dumb farm boy who's big and strong, and he'll throw 3 interceptions, but he doesn't care. And that's good and bad, right? He's fearless. I fully expect Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs to put up humongous numbers. People, Josh Allen can't win he might not be able to, but the guy is still going to put up a ton of points. And I think this is a get right game. And we're going to see like 350 through the air, 3 touchdowns. Maybe he runs one in from Josh Allen this week. I think you feel confident starting those 2 for sure without hesitation against the Raiders.
Oh yeah, no one's doing anything but starting both those. I mean, Stephon Diggs, the Bills didn't play great. Stephon Diggs still had over 100 yards and a
102
touchdown.
yards.
Yeah. He was very good.
It's fine.
He was a big part of the reason I'm sure a lot of people won their weeks, because I think he had like well over 20 or 25 points in certain formats. So yeah, everyone's starting Diggs. Yeah, the turnovers were a little concerning from Allen. Maybe he tried to play too much hero ball, perhaps. Which
definitely,
it did look a little bit like he regressed. He's regressed from the Brian Dable days to the Ken Dorsey days. It's like a teensy bit, but I mean, it's still not enough for you to like not start Josh Allen. You're going to start him literally every single week that he's healthy, essentially.
Right. Oh, and I just love all the commentary about Zach Wilson here. I'm seeing from NFL Network. Zach Wilson's confidence has been rebuilt, putting him in a position to succeed. The only image I have of Zach Wilson is, and I've talked about on draft day, where it looked like he was wearing a grade 8 suit with his tiny baby toddler shoulders. No, Zach Wilson. No, I can't entertain his confidence is Cowboys are going to absolutely smash the Jets. What's the line on this? This is starting to anger me, I'm getting fired up over this. This is bothering me now. 8.5 Dallas. Give me 10. I'll buy the points. I want 10 points. I want 10 smash and destroy Zach Wilson and his tiny shoulders. I can't stand it because it's out of New York. Give me a break. Okay. All right. Let's a couple games we haven't talked about. Seahawks and Lions. I wonder if this could be a little bit of a trap game. And we remember these 2 teams played last year, and that was where they put up it was like 40 something points each. Like, it was a crazy shootout game between Geno Smith and Jared Goff. Over under set at 47. I think if we're betting, I'm taking the over on the 47. But the Lions, this is a real test. You beat the Chiefs week 1. You've had a long time. Everybody's been clapping to you. How do you respond? I wonder if this could be a little bit of a trap game for the Lions and for the Seahawks, a chance to prove that last year wasn't a fluke.
Andy, how many times do you think in your lifetime you have said this could be a trap game for the Lions? Probably maybe twice in your entire life.
maybe that might be too much. That might, maybe 1 year when they had Stafford, once, 1 year. Yeah. Not many, but this is if the Lions win this game, this is a real chance for them to put a stamp on that NFC North, and they're the team to beat.
Yeah, I agree. The Lions looked very good. Like, they looked very good. And the usage, we talked about this very briefly earlier, the usage of Jahmyr Gibbs versus Montgomery was a little, maybe not puzzling, but it was disappointing from a fantasy perspective because, I mean, a lot of people probably invested really high picks in Jahmyr Gibbs, and it's not like you're going to start both Gibbs and Montgomery on any given week. Anytime he touched the ball, I actually thought he looked very, very dynamic, and he was probably like a broken spin tackle away from scoring a touchdown near the goal line in that one as well. So, I mean, look, I think you're starting all of the usual suspects, and I probably would still start Gibbs just because they did say his role is going to be expanded because they like what they saw. So you're probably still starting all of Gibbs, Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and certainly Jared Goff as well. Probably not a lot of other players, but I mean, I would definitely start all four of them against the Seahawks. And on the Seattle side, you're probably starting the usual suspects in Geno and perhaps all three of the wide receivers, Lockett, GSN, and Metcalf as well.
Well, when to dive back to the Lions for a sec, that Sam Laporta, if you're in need tight end help last week, I think he had 5 targets, caught all of them. Might not be like for PPR, might not be a putting up Travis Kelce 100-yard numbers, but this guy showed me a lot of reliability. He ran crisp routes. Showed me too. He caught like that fingertip ball. Like I think there's something there. So I'd be comfortable starting Laporta also. Last week was concerning with the Seahawks because really, I don't know if it's safe to assume that Geno Smith is just going to be great again because before last year, he was not great ever at all. He was almost out of the league. And so now comes back, only 16 completions. Like Metcalf saved his fantasy day with the touchdown, but you had 3 catches for the rookie Jackson Smith-Njigba and 2 catches for Tyler Lockett. So there's certainly some hesitation there. You did run it a bunch with Kenneth Walker. You had Charbonnet with 3 carries. Like I wonder, I'm starting DK Metcalf. I'm probably, if you have Tyler Lockett, you probably have to start him. But I'm a little nervous to think that if we see that regression again, like if we see a similar stat line for Geno Smith, we might have to reevaluate our thinking on the Seahawks this year.
That is true. I mean, there are not that many offenses or that many quarterbacks, real life or fantasy, that can always support 3 wide receivers. Like, you're not wrong, right? Like, it's actually probably pretty few because most offenses support 2 pass catchers, whether it's 2 wide receivers or a wide receiver and a tight end in some cases. But yeah, you're probably right. I think I wouldn't mind starting the 3 wideouts from Seahawks this week, but you're right. I think this is like a circle it and reevaluate once this game is done, because if it happens again, then I think we're going to have to be a little more discerning. Tyler Lockett did look like a little bit more of a boomer bust play, and again, Geno didn't look super polished. But then again, you know what? I will say for virtually every team, maybe beyond like Miami and Los Angeles, who played like the Chargers, who played each other when they had that shootout, which was probably the most exciting game of week 1, most of the fantasy quarterbacks, Andy, in week 1 looked a little disappointing. Don't you think? Like, it was like an extended preseason where everyone looked like they were still shaking off the rust a little bit. So I kind of sometimes wonder how much you put stock, you take the Justin Fields or the Lamar Jacksons or the Joe Burrows and so on, and you say, okay, I don't know how well they played. But on the other hand, maybe it's just week 1. These guys didn't play a lot, if at all, in the preseason. So maybe it'll change as the season continues.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We got Grant in there asking about Zach Ertz and how often he was targeted. Let's go to that Cardinals-Giants game. This is another. Ooh.
It's a good question, though. Zach Ertz saw a ridiculous amount of targets for coming off an ACL tear. Kind of surprised.
10 targets, 6 catches, but for 21 yards, Show. No touchdowns. So, like, I think and here's the problem. You got Josh Dobbs at quarterback, former Browns backup. Josh, he's very smart. He can run a bit, but like the Cardinals they're playing, it's tank mode. Like you're not going to be getting big numbers. So if Zach Ertz can parlay one of those catches into a touchdown for PPR, I think you might be looking okay. But you just have to downgrade everybody there. And for the Giants, you just have to think, Show, that if this has to be a get-right game, Dable, with all the expectations, all the money to Daniel Jones, you better be going into Arizona and make a statement. Because if you lose or if you look bad again, like, that is shocking. That is a shocking drop-off from year over year.
Yeah, I agree. You can't go in there certainly and lose. I mean, losing your first 2 games of the season for any team is never great, but for the Giants, who obviously you want to get back to the playoffs because they made the playoffs last year with this exact same crew, so you definitely want to continue that. But boy, I mean, if you go in and even if you just look lethargic or you look unprepared, that is going to reflect poorly. I think it's going to reflect poorly on Dable because last year, a big part of the narrative wasn't just that the Giants looked good. It was that he made them almost culture-wise look completely changed. So if that doesn't, I mean, again, it'll be early 2 weeks wrong, but they can't afford to have a big letdown after getting spanked by your division rival in prime time, no less.
Well, especially that division. You got the Eagles, Cowboys. You want to have any chance to keep pace. Yeah, you have the Cardinals on a silver platter. So we'll see. That's a very interesting ball game there. We talked about 49ers and Rams, usual suspects for the 49ers, of course. Sunday Night Football, we got your Dolphins and Patriots. Here's one game I want to get to, show from. And I think from a fantasy standpoint, we know who we're starting for Chiefs Jags, right? We're starting Mahomes, we're starting Kelsey. I don't really want anybody else. Jags, I'm comfortable with Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley for sure. The other receivers, like you said, though, I kind of want to, I'm going to have to start Christian Kirk just because of my other options. But I really want to see underneath Ridley how that plays out and if we can get a little bit more clarity on the pecking order from that Jaguars club.
In a couple of my leagues, I did pick up, we were talking about the stashing guys on the end of your bench earlier. So in a couple of my leagues, I did pick up Zay Jones, just in case. Just in case he ends up being the WR2, because, you look at some of the other options in Jacksonville. If we're talking about Trevor Lawrence being able to consistently support 2 pass catchers, then certainly Calvin Ridley is one. I mean, Evan Engram might be the other guy, and he didn't look too bad, I would say, coming off a monster season last year. But now that he has a little bit more competition for touches, you do want to see what the second option shakes out like. But if it's not Evan Engram, it could be Zay Jones. It could still be Christian Kirk, certainly. But I did pick up Zay Jones, and you could probably have gotten him for free off the waiver wire or for a handful of dollars if you're doing fab, right? So, but you're right. We have to wait to see how it shakes out. I probably wouldn't start definitively everyone from a pass catching standpoint other than Ridley and Engram this week.
Right. And Travis Etienne, you can start with confidence too, coming off of nice workload. You wanted to see that workload. 18 carries, got the touchdown. So that's really nice. I wonder though, Show, Kansas City, 3.5-point favorites on the road. That number went up from 2.5 earlier in the week. I'm wondering if this could be a bit of an upset. I know Kelsey's back and he's not 100%. The Jaguars, and look, no one's scared going into Jacksonville to play. Or not, it's not like the Chiefs are at home. I wonder if the Jags could pull this out, on a straight win. I might put a couple bucks down on the Jags, for 3.5. Let's just say this: it wouldn't blow my mind if the Jaguars beat the Chiefs this week the way they've been playing.
Yeah, maybe that's the best way of putting it, because obviously the Chiefs are going to be. Maybe not heavy favorites, but they're going to be favorites for a good reason because they're the Super Bowl champs. And after losing week 1, in which it still kind of felt like the game slipped through their fingers because guys were dropping passes and many of the regulars were not available. But I mean, this week, the Chiefs get not only Travis Kelce back, but they get Chris Jones back as well, who they had the contract dispute, right? So I do kind of wonder what the absence of Chris Jones certainly did to the defensive line in week 1 when the Lions were able to really push the line of scrimmage with guys like David Montgomery and certainly Jahmyr Gibbs, more David Montgomery than Jahmyr Gibbs. But you get a guy like Chris Jones back. I wonder what that does for the Jags' ability to move things with Etienne or Bigsby, for example.
Plus 150 for a straight up Jags win.
That's not terrible.
Not terrible. Might be worth it. Questionnaire from Thunderwolf. Do you guys think that Cleveland will cover the 2.5 line on Monday night? It was consistent 2.5 all week. Browns wearing their new white helmets and looking sharp.
Is it in Cleveland?
It's in Pittsburgh. Where, Show? And I've been told this all week. The Steelers have won 20 straight home Monday Night Football games.
I mean, that doesn't mean anything, though, right?
Right?
Like
Exactly.
20 straight Monday night games would go back a really long time. Like, it go back to a point where, like, before
Bill Cowher.
before Mike Tomlin. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
It'd be Bill Cowher, because you're not guaranteed a Monday night game every year, and you're not guaranteed it at home.
Right. So, I don't know. Like, I don't get me wrong. Those kind of stats are sexy and fun, and it's fun to talk about those when your team is in them, for example. But I don't know. Like, if you're talking about, like, 2005 Big Ben versus 2023, like, what similar roster play? There's nothing in similar between these two rosters.
No, there really isn't. So I think the Browns do win this game. It's always tough in Pittsburgh, and I don't think the players, like, the media makes it like, do the players, okay, does Deshaun Watson care? Deshaun Watson wasn't here for those. Like, what does he care? Does Zadarius Smith care for the Browns at their Pittsburgh's 20? No. So I think the Browns do, biased obviously, but I think the Browns win that one straight up.
I actually do think the Browns win that one too. I like 2.5. It might change closer to tomorrow night, but I mean, it's a field goal. And you mentioned all the guys the Steelers are missing, not only on offense, but Cam Hayward, losing him, even if TJ Watt and Minka and those guys are there still, they're very talented. But I mean, it'll probably be a low-scoring game, but if the Browns win this one like 17-14, would anyone be all that surprised? Like, no, I don't think.
No, division rivals, it's always tough. Big matchup, TJ Watt versus Browns rookie right tackle with Jack Conklin out, Dawan Jones, who show this guy is legit 6'8". They said he has the wingspan of a 7'5" man.
That's wild.
That's insane. So, and he used to play basketball, so his footwork is like surprisingly quick for a guy that size. So it'll be a really interesting matchup, him versus TJ Watt there. Let's go. Let's see. What games haven't we touched here? Broncos, Commanders. I like Cortland Sutton this week. I'm putting Cortland Sutton in for Amari Cooper, who might be out with, and remember, that's Monday Night Football. So if you have Amari Cooper, do you want to chance and keep him in? Because otherwise you're going to be stuck. So I have Cortland Sutton on my bench. I'm putting Sutton in. I like the week he had last week. Broncos.
Jerry Jeudy back though. Where do you think?
Judy's back. I would just hope for, I don't know, like, don't feel bad for Russell Wilson in life. He's done well. But like, it just seems with the hype of Sean Payton, I hope this Broncos team's like just gets a bit better offensively. They had that onside kick to start things off, which was fun.
Right.
But it's like, I don't know, against the Commanders, whose defense still, like the Commanders, we can laugh at their offense or whatever all the time, but they're 1-0 and their defense is stout. So even with Judy back, I still think if Russell can stay and if the game plan is drawn up to distribute the ball, I still think both guys can eat.
Well, Greg Dulcich did go on the IR, so
yes,
with him gone, it probably does free up enough targets for both Judy and Sutton. So they're probably the guys you want to start. And Javonte Williams, for a guy who tore like every ligament in his knee, his ACL, his PCL, his LCL, he actually looked pretty good now that he's back from that injury, certainly, which he suffered last year. So, I mean, those are the three guys, right? I admit I am less bullish on Russell himself, but if you feel like you can start three Denver skill position players, it probably means Russell Wilson's having like a decent day at least.
Yeah, that's spicy. That might be too much of a danger zone pick for me. Show three Denver players. Oh man! As we look to wrap up, let's get back to the comment section here. Grant's boarding a flight. Grant, safe travels, man. He says, cut Kadarius Toney for the Chiefs. I'm not touching Toney. What a disaster. Wow.
I won't drop him just yet. I'll wait to see if he has like at least one bounce back before I completely cut him from the roster. Agreed. But if it happens again, done. I'm out. Someone else can deal with that headache.
Yep, I'm sitting him. But yeah, I would hold off a little bit there. But what a disaster. Got a question from Trent. Hey, guys, half PPR for flex. Lockett or my big waiver pickup, Puka? Questionable. And any reason to replace Ramar with Anthony Richardson? Excellent questions here, Trent. I like it. Yeah. Okay, so let's answer the first one. Half point PPR flex, Lockett or Puka? Oh, I would say you gamble and go with Puka because Lockett had like 2 catches, and I want to see this, like we talked about, I want to see the Seattle offense pop a little bit. Like, again, like, we can go the other way. Would it shock us if Puka did nothing? Because he's out of nowhere. It wouldn't surprise me at all against that San Francisco defense. But I think the upside for me this week after what we saw week 1, I'll say Puka in that situation over Lockett.
So I'm just looking at the times of these games. So on the East Coast, the Seahawks play at 1, which is the first set of games, and then the Rams play at 4. So I guess the only I would also go Puka, but the only danger is if Puka is a surprise bench, then you're screwed. Is the problem, right? So, and he has been questionable all week. He kind of cropped up on a surprise in the injury report. Now, okay, so Jordan Rodrigue, who is one of the Rams insiders for The Athletic, she had tweeted out yesterday. It was kind of cryptic, but the way I deciphered that tweet was she hadn't been told directly that he's not playing, but that he is expected to play. So if he is expected to play, unless he tweaks something in warm-ups, then you probably be okay. But because so if those two options, I would certainly go Puka over Lockett, just until Lockett gets a bit more work in the passing game.
I'm wondering too, Sho, if you do go that route, if you have somebody droppable on your bench, maybe back for 1 week only, maybe see if you can backfill. Is Tutu at 12 there?
Because he is available. Yeah.
If Tutu is available, so Trent, if Tutu is available, and you can drop somebody off the bench, pick up Tutu. Have Puka ready, but if there's a surprise scratch or it looks like he'll be very limited, then at least you'll be able to pop him in and backfill yourself. So that might be a thing there. And last part of it, any reason to replace Lamar with Richardson? You know what? It's tough. It's a division game against the Bengals. Bengals were embarrassed. You'd think they'd be riled up to go. Richardson, and they played the Texans. The better matchup is Anthony Richardson. And Anthony Richardson, fantasy-wise, looked good last week. I think I would go Richardson. Again, matchup-based, I think I would go Anthony Richardson.
I do think the more attractive matchup is for sure the Richardson matchup. It's just as someone starting Richardson today, I am starting him in my Superflex league. So full disclosure, I am on the Richardson bandwagon, but I would find it really difficult to bench Lamar Jackson.
I know.
Just go back to the whole week 1, it kind of felt like an extended preseason for a lot of guys. Not a lot of people. Very few quarterbacks looked good, right? And yes, Richardson was one of them, but I mean, he also had the bone bruise on the knee. So I would probably still go Lamar Jackson, knowing that he has Mark Andrews back. So and then again, what if he stinks it up again? Then maybe that's a more valid conversation to have next week.
Right, to see what's up there. Okay, so there you go. All right, Show, we're done here. Week 2. Any other questions afterwards? Hit Show up on Twitter at SNSLE, myself at AndyMC81, at SickPodBrowns, Instagram and TikTok at AndyMC Sports. Make sure you click subscribe and all that. Show, tell people where they can find you, see all that good stuff.
Yeah, at SNS Alley with 2 L's is where you can find me on X, I guess these days, not Twitter. X. I'm still going to call it Twitter though. But that's where you can find me. I post most of our articles, videos, whatever on there. And I'm a terrible Twitter replier, but if you DM me, I will get back to you as soon as possible.
Awesome. All right, buddy. Thank you so much. Enjoy the games.
Yeah, good luck to your Browns, Andy. I'll talk to you later.
All right, we'll see you later. There he is, Shoaib Alli. As we wrap up this week here, Trent with the thumbs up in the chat. Yeah, guys, click subscribe, notifications. Let's have some fun today. Going to be a great week of football. Monday night versus Pittsburgh. Browns and Steelers. I'll be back on Tuesday for a reaction show. Hopefully, a huge victory Tuesday. It's going to be tough on paper, and we know what happens on paper with the Browns and in years past. But this isn't your last year's Browns. This isn't the previous Browns. This is a new attitude, but you have to go in again. You won the home opener, which you hadn't done at home, the season opener at home since last time was, I think, 2003, 4, whatever it was. You broke that. Now it's time to break that Steelers Monday Night Football streak, show you're for real 2-0, and return home the next week. And I'll be in Cleveland for that, which I cannot wait for. All right. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to the Sick Podcast team. Get your professional fantasy football shirt. Check out our gear and the team shop below. It's also pinned on my Twitter at AndyMC81. Thanks to Show. I'm Andy McNamara. Any fantasy football betting questions, get them in. Good luck, and we'll see you Tuesday.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.